So let's read through these and then we'll watch David Warwick. How about that? Cash Me with David Warwick. How about that?
I don't know.
Hold on. Inside the courtroom for another day, a woman with a hat pulled over her face was escorted in the courthouse by a Rexburg police officer. It was Melanie Gibb. She... oh my God. I can't stand this lady. Can I just tell you how much I can't stand her? She went in with a hat over her head. Bitch, you called JJ a drug baby. Like, get out of here. Lori's wearing a light gray jacket and black rimmed glasses. Her attorneys are here and all the prosecutors are at their table. Judge Boyce has entered the courtroom. Annie Cushing and her daughter are there, and Larry and Kay Woodcock, along with several family members. And then he's got a timeline he put together. Let's see. Jurors have been brought in. Attorney Lindsay Blake will now question Melanie Gibb. Gibb is wearing a black top, white skirt, glasses, and is sworn in. This is the first time Lori and Melanie have seen each other since 2019. Melanie says she met Lori at an event in 2018. She said she met Chad a year or two before she met Lori. She says when she met Chad, it was casual and they were not close friends. Melanie says she and Lori kept in touch after they met. Melanie met Tylee within a week of meeting Lori. Melanie said Tylee seemed upset and frustrated with Lori most of the time. There was tension in the relationship, Melanie says. Melanie says she met JJ within a week or two of meeting Lori. She said Lori was affectionate with JJ and would sing him songs at bedtime. But as time went on, Lori wasn't as focused on JJ and Lori was distracted a lot. Melanie says she saw Lori daily or several times a week during the beginning of their friendship. Things changed in January 2019 when Lori started moving. Melanie lived within 20 to 25 minutes of each other. They would get together, speak on the phone, and text. In January of 2019, Lori decided to leave Arizona and stay with Alex. Then she went to Hawaii, then to Texas, then back to Arizona by July when Charles was killed. Melanie says she and Lori went on a trip with 5 to 6 other ladies for a conference in Utah. Melanie observed a meeting between Chad and Lori. Chad and Lori had never met before. The conference was Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Most people went home. Chad stayed Friday and Saturday. Lori and Melanie were in the area Friday through Sunday. Melanie says Chad and Lori were very friendly, talking a lot about their beliefs, and that there was definitely an attraction at the beginning. Lori was interested in Chad like someone would be when they meet someone they're attracted to. She seemed flattered with him and was flirty-like. Melanie says Lori had read a few of Chad's books before they met. Melanie is asked if she ever spoke with Chad about the first time she met Lori. She says most likely, but doesn't remember. Melanie spoke with Lori after Lori meeting Chad. So Melanie started talking to Lori after Lori started talking to Chad. She shared with me that he told her they had been married in another time period. She did believe that. She had already had the belief that there was multiple lives, as they would call it. She already believed that before she physically met him. Melanie says Lori told her that Lori had been married to the prophet Moroni from the Book of Mormon. After the conference, Lori kept in touch with Chad on the phone. Chad was married to Tammy at the time, and Lori was married to Charles, and both spouses were alive. Melanie said she learned of the term multiple probations when she first started interacting with Lori. Lori and Chad introduced this teaching to Melanie, and Chad often spoke about it. Lori told Melanie that she and Chad often spoke about multiple probations. Melanie says the definition of multiple probations changed the longer they knew each other. But the basic belief was that you could live multiple times on the earth and it would be different for everyone. 2 weekends after the meeting, Chad came to Arizona for another event. Melanie and Lori went to this conference. Of course they did. Lori held a meeting at her house before the conference. Of course she did. Melanie does not remember if Chad was there. Melanie saw Lori and Chad interacting at the conference. Chad stayed at Lori's house over the weekend. Charles was out of town, according to Melanie. Lori told Melanie that she had been married 4 to 5 times as other characters. Chad too. Lori told Melanie that the weekend Chad came to Arizona, they met in the LDS temple together, and they were sealed together by Moroni and Jesus Christ. That relationship of multiple lives was reunited. This happened in a waiting room, not in a sealing room in the temple. Lori was open with Melanie about her feelings for Chad. Lori only told people in her small group about her and Chad. Lori told Melanie about the 144,000 who will be here during the return of Jesus Christ to earth. Lori then said Chad and Lori would be leading the group and do a lot of missionary work ahead of the second coming. Melanie lists the names of those who were in the group and close with Lori, including Alex and Melanie Pulowski, which is Lori's niece. Within weeks of Melanie meeting Lori, Lori began telling her how Chad and Lori were supposed to lead the 144,000. Melanie describes a light and dark scale that Lori told her about after she met Chad. People who were light had signed contracts with the Savior. Those who were dark signed contracts with Satan before coming to earth. That's fucked up. And she thought her kids signed contracts with Satan. Melanie says Lori taught her about the light and dark scale. Lori would teach other friends and her brother about the scale. Anyone who was dark was working under the contract of Satan. Melanie says someone could switch from light to dark and dark to light. How do you do that? Do you unsign your contract? So that's as of 20 minutes ago. This is audio from yesterday, which I listened to. She seemed flattered with him and flirty like. That's shocking, isn't it? Okay, here's more. Melanie says after Charles died, Lori and Chad were happy. Prior to Charles' death, Melanie said Chad and Lori communicated multiple times a day. Melanie said Lori had 2 to 3 cell phones, one phone just for Chad. Oh, wait, there's more about Brandon. Hold on. Oh my God, there's a ton more. Hold on. This is so confusing. Lori told Melanie that the weekend Chad came to Arizona, they met at the LDS temple and were sealed by Moroni and Jesus Christ. That relationship of multiple lives was reunited. Oh, I already read that. Melanie says Lori taught her. Okay, Brandon Boudreaux and Charles Vallow were not present for these meetings and were not told about these teachings. Melanie says Lori would not have considered Charles part of their inner circle. Lori said she had a dream where Charles was in a car accident in Texas and would not be coming back home by January 1st. JJ was with Charles at that time and would have been traveling back with Charles. Charles was never in an accident, and Melanie asked Lori what happened. You shared you thought he was going to die, and Lori responded, he didn't because Satan interfered with the plan. Satan interfered with the plan? Oh, Lordy. Lori is looking at Melanie during this testimony and also taking notes. I can't wait for Cross. Lori told Melanie about castings. This involved a prayer to get the evil spirit out of someone and encourage the spirit to come out by the power of God. Melanie participated in a casting in January, February of 2019 after Lori learned Charles was dark. What? Melanie is participating in these castings on Lori's husband. Charles was the first person that Lori ever called dark. The first casting Melanie was involved in was with Lori and a group of women at Zulima's house. Oh my God, did they have Zulima marry Alex to kill him?
I don't know.
What? Zulima's house. Alex was not married to her at the time. This casting involved prayer and words, quote, convincing the spirit to leave the body. This would be the spirit that took over a particular person's body. Melanie says the first time the group thought they had cast an evil spirit named Ned out of Charles' body. But Charles was still alive, so the teachings changed, and now a spirit named Garrick or Garrett entered Charles' body. Lori cast the spirit out of Charles, but then the final spirit he blows entered Charles' body. Melanie says weeks after the original idea of spirit taking over bodies, Lori started to use the term zombie. Melanie says Lori was present for all of the castings. Chad was present for one casting, according to Melanie. That the one Chad attended was right after Charles' death. Melanie recalls participating in a casting for Brandon B. Lori told Melanie that Brandon was dark and had an evil spirit. Brandon was part of Hitler's group and was considered very high dark. She does not recall participating in castings for anyone else. Part of Hitler's group and was very high dark? All he wanted was his wife to go to his grandfather's funeral with him. That's all he wanted. Lori told Melanie that Charles Brandon, one of Lori's brothers, not Alex, that would be Adam, Lori's dad, Tylee, Kay, and JJ were all dark. Random people were also dark. Melanie says if Tammy Daybell was dark, it was right before Tammy died. Lori told Melanie sometime between February and June of 2019 that Tylee was dark. In September 2019, Lori told Melanie JJ was possessed. Many jurors are taking notes during Melanie's testimony. The night before Charles died, Lori told Melanie that Alex was spending the night at her house because Charles was going to kill her. After Charles died, Lori told Melanie that he had been argumentative with her. The spirit told Lori to pick up Charles' phone, and he was upset she took his phone. Lori said they argued. He threatened her, and Tylee came out with a baseball bat to protect herself. Alex went to get his gun to protect him, and then he shot Charles. This is all according to what Lori told Melanie. Melanie says, oh my God. Melanie says after Charles died, Lori and Chad were happy. Prior to Charles' death, they communicated multiple times a day. Lori told Melanie she and Chad would meet at hotels. Lori shared they were intimate, while Charles and Tammy were still alive. Shocker.
A hard time hearing you. Do you mind pulling your microphone down and then aiming it up at your chin?
Lori said this was according to God's will because they had been married in multiple lives. During this testimony, Lori is frantically taking notes in the courtroom. Melanie said right before JJ was killed, Lori said he was difficult to handle. It was hard for her to take care of him and be with Chad. Lori indicated she was going to ask Kay if Kay could take care of JJ going forward. Melanie says she last saw Tylee in July, August 2019 before Lori and Alex moved with the kids to Idaho. So this is mirroring what we watched yesterday. So I'm interested in the cross-examination of her. But I'm going to play, I didn't plan on doing this, but we skated through those first two stories. So I think we should watch David Warwick. It's only 25 minutes long. Testify at Chad Daybell's prelim. So this is 26 minutes long. And this is Melanie Gibb's boyfriend. And he was there that weekend. And he tells a different story. If you remember, if you guys watched yesterday and you paid attention, you're going to notice he has a different story about the real estate transaction that they went on at Daybell's house that weekend. He has a different story on where JJ Vallow was that weekend. I love you too, Mandy. But isn't this crazy shiz? Let me tell you, this is going to be the testimony. I am geeked for this testimony. I don't know if David Warwick is going to testify in Lori's, but nonetheless, interesting because these two are two peas in a pod. And get this, I was going to do a live on this later. I got to show you guys something. They got married, these two clowns, Melanie and Warwick. They got married. Where's that freaking picture? Oh, here. This is the thumbnail I made for, I was going to do this later, but maybe I'll cut this. I don't know. Let me show you the thumbnail though. You guys will laugh. So her and David Warwick got married and she wore black in her wedding. So this is David Warwick when he testified in Chad's thing. Look on the left. This is David Warwick now. Look how fucking... Dude, this was what happens when you keep secrets about kids' lives. See what he looks like now? Horrid. He looks... Look how thin he is. Holy.
I heard Eduardo
This is what happens when you lie, folks.
Given the fallout, given the fallout,
you just might end up looking like an emaciated piece of shit if you keep secrets about little kids' deaths. So that is a picture of Lori and Melanie right there in the middle. That is the day. That's the day that J.J. Vallow was killed. That was when they were recording their podcast. Look at that. Look at that smug look on both their faces. And don't let Melanie fool you, because she hated Lori's kids. She didn't like them. Oh, it looks photoshopped because I cropped them out. Like I cut I cut the background of them out. So that's my work. But his hair is not purple. It's just the plexiglass from the trial or the preliminary. It was COVID. That's a reflection on the plexiglass. But this is the night that they recorded their podcast. I'm going to go get a cup of coffee. Actually, I'm going to start this footage. Let's see here. We're going to listen to David Warwick lie his ass off. And thank you guys for listening to this with me, because I don't know who else I would listen to it with, because I'm like enthralled. I am enthralled. Okay, so let me... And thank you to all our supporters. I want to thank you guys. Thank you so much, Miss Robin, for your donation that came in late last night. Thank you, thank you. Well, I'm glad you want to listen to it with me, because I only want to listen to it with y'all, because y'all are the only ones that put up with my weirdness. But I'm telling you, these two, they should have been charged too, in my opinion. And I think that's what Lori and Chad are thinking. And I think that's why Lori is obsessively taking notes over there, because she knows what Melanie knows. She knows these people are clowns. And I'm not defending Lori Vallow, but I'll be damned if there's other people that were wise to this and the state, gave them some kind of a deal. It's a little sickening, in my opinion. I don't believe in deals for people who fuck with kids. Excuse my language on this Thursday, April 13th. But, here we have Governor DeSantis in Florida, which is what I was going to talk about, is that he wants death penalty for pedos, for child killers, automatic. Here we have that, right, being introduced in the state of Florida. And here we have Idaho protecting people who are involved with hurting children. I say no bueno on that, Rob Wood. Do your work. Do your fucking work and get your evidence. And I'm not trying to be critical, but damn, man. Do your work so you don't have to give these people immunity. It's ridiculous. Ah! Good morning, Katie. Thank you, Rob. Hey, Brooke, thank you, Brooke. I did. I reached the $500 goal for my trip. I did. All right, here we go. This is David Warwick testifying. This is 2 years ago. Mind you, their stories aren't going to change much.
State would call David Warwick.
I'll put on closed caption.
Mr. Warwick, if you'll come forward, stand in front of the plexiglass, raise your right arm, and face the clerk.
Point that microphone right at your chin.
Yes.
Yeah,
Mr.
these
Warwick,
people
you can
don't
be
care.
seated right here in this witness box. You can take off your mask when you're seated there. If you'll please put yourself close to that microphone. We're making an audio recording. Mr. Warwick, if you, so that we don't have two different voices going at the same time.
Yes, thank you guys so much.
Mr. Wood, you may inquire when you're ready.
Will you state your name and spell it for the record?
David Warwick.
Couldn't hear the last part.
Okay.
Oh, this is another thing that's rich.
Mr. Wood, if you'll speak closer to
He's
that.
deaf too. Okay. So not only is his girlfriend Melanie hard of hearing, but this dude is too. And the headsets don't work for him. And dude, these people are pieces of crap. I'm just saying it like it is. It is what it is, right, Judge?
Okay, it is what it is.
Microphone. It's difficult with this plexiglass.
Sure.
So Mr. Wood, if you'll speak loudly, we'll make sure that Mr. Warwick can hear you.
Mr. Warwick, could you state your name and spell it for the record?
David Dale Warwick.
And spell it.
Mr. Warwick, can you spell that name for the record? Spell it.
Warwick.
Thank you.
Did I ask them to do that?
Mr. Warwick, how long have you known Chad Daybell?
We've crossed paths several times in the last 5 years.
So approximately 5 years.
What's that?
So you've known him approximately 5
Approximately,
years.
yeah.
Okay. And are you familiar with Lori Vallow Daybell?
Sorry, what was that?
Are you familiar with Lori Vallow Daybell?
Yes.
When did you meet her?
I met her first week of August 2019
Where was that?
at her home,
Where was her home?
Gilbert, Arizona.
Okay. Was Chad Daybell there?
Yes.
Mr. Warwick, have you ever met Tylee Ryan?
No.
Have you met JJ Vallow?
Yes.
When did you meet JJ Vallow?
I met JJ Vallow on September 21st, 2019.
Where was that?
That was at her town, Lori's town home in Rexburg.
Okay. Why were you there?
For a threesome.
I was invited, I was coming up for
Whoops.
a conference, and I was invited to stay there instead of renting a hotel room.
I'm sure you were.
And so that's why I was there.
Okay. When did you arrive there?
I arrived Friday night about 7:30.
And you said you were there for a conference, correct?
Say that again?
You said you were there for a conference, correct?
Yeah, the conference was on Saturday. And so,
And you attended that conference, correct?
yes,
While you were there, how often did you see Chad Daybell?
at the condo or over the weekend.
Over the
Sorry.
weekend?
Total asshole.
3 times that I can recall.
Okay. How many times did you see him in Lori's home?
Mr. Warwick, we have a listening device here. I can tell that
Yes.
maybe you're a little bit hard of hearing.
Yeah, I am.
We appreciate you being here. We want to accommodate you. Do you mind if we try this hearing device to see if it's a little bit easier for you to hear?
Yes, that'd be great.
These nuts.
Given the fallout from
Given the fallout,
You're being a Karen.
Like one like that.
Just tell him to point that microphone right at your chin.
Pull it down below your chin and aim it at your chin.
Largo with like a G.
That was me packing cigarettes, probably. Look at Rob Wood. He's like, my star witnesses suck.
Mr. Warwick,
My
can you hear
case
me
sucks.
okay?
Yes.
Is that better?
About the same.
Oh
All
my
right.
God.
Well,
Your witness
let's
sucks,
experiment
Rob
with
Wood.
it a little bit here. If
This is the
if
best
it's
he
not
got,
better,
guys.
You're welcome to take
We should
it
be
off.
worried.
I want to do all that I can to make sure that you can hear me,
Shit's
hear Mr.
squeaking
Wood,
and everything else.
and hear Mr. Pryor when those questions are happening. If there's anything you don't hear, please let us know. We'll speak louder
His
and we'll
headset
speak
squeaks.
slower. We want to make sure that the testimony and the record is very clear here today, okay?
Pull it down below your chin and aim it at your chin.
Very
Mr. Wood.
greasy.
Mr. Warwick, can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay.
Here we go.
I don't recall if you answered my last question.
He didn't.
How many times over the weekend of September 20th through the 23rd, how many times did you see the defendant Chad Daybell at Lori's house?
Once.
Okay. So when was that?
That would be Sunday, the 22nd.
Okay.
That was when
Did
JJ
you
was
have
killed.
opportunity to visit with Mr. Daybell?
I did.
What did you speak about?
I asked him about his relationship with Tammy,
Who was Tammy?
his wife.
Okay.
Did you hear it squeak
Um,
again?
Mr. Warwick, did you see J.J. Vallow in Lori's apartment?
I did.
Did you interact with him at all?
I tried to a couple of times.
Okay. How did that go?
It was like I wasn't even there. He didn't acknowledge me at all.
Okay. And you're aware that he had autism, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall the night of September 22nd, 2019?
Yes.
What did you do that night?
I was doing a podcast with Melanie Gibb and Lori Vallow.
Was JJ there when you did your podcast?
No.
Did you see him at all that night?
Yes.
When was that?
When he was staying with Alex, and Alex brought him home and carried him to bed. So
Okay.
when the door opened, that's when
It squeaked.
I think that's me. You were just talking about, I believe, Mr. Cox bringing JJ into Lori's house.
I
Yes.
edited. No.
Do you recall what time that was?
don't recall it exactly.
Okay.
It's later in the night.
Okay. Was Chad Daybell there?
What's that?
Was Chad Daybell there at that same time?
No.
Let's talk about the morning of September 23rd, 2019. What did you do that morning?
I got up to get ready to go. Then I went downstairs to say goodbye to everybody.
Okay. And who was there?
Who's everybody?
Melanie Gibb and Lori Vallow.
Okay. Did you see JJ there?
No,
Did you talk to Lori about JJ that morning?
I did.
What did she tell you about JJ that morning?
She said that he was being a zombie and climbed up on the cabinets, climbed up on top of the fridge, smashed her picture of Christ down, and then climbed up onto the upper cabinets and got between the top of the cabinet and the ceiling.
Okay. And then what did she tell you?
I asked to see him, and she just said that he was out of control, so she had Alex come and get him.
Okay. Do you believe that he did that JJ did that? I mean, what I think about is the fact that his dad's gone, his sister's gone, and he's acting out possibly. And Chad didn't want to deal with it. And neither did Lori. So why didn't Lori do what she said she was going to do and give him back to Kay? Why didn't that happen?
Who was Alex?
Lori's brother.
Okay. Is that Alex Cox?
Yes.
Okay. State has no further questions, Your Honor.
Okay. Now,
Cross-examination. Mr. Pryor, if you'll please speak as close as you possibly can to that microphone.
Okay. So, before we get to the cross, you notice that Rob Wood did not ask him about the real estate transactions or the real estate they went to go look at by Daybell's house. When he asked what they did that weekend, all he asked about was the podcast. And when he got up and left that morning, if he saw JJ, he didn't say anything about anything else. Now, let's listen to Pryor.
I think it's going to be a lot easier to hear.
And Mr. Warwick, at any time you don't understand my question, would you please ask me to state it again, please, sir, would you?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Warwick, would it be a fair statement that Mr. Daybell only showed up the entire weekend from the 19th to the 23rd at Lori Vallow's apartment one time?
That's what I can remember.
Okay. So to suggest, or if anyone suggested that he was in and out of there multiple times, that's just not a true statement, would it? Is that correct?
I'm not sure about that either. I know I saw Chad throughout the weekend at least 3 times. I'm trying to remember if it was twice at Lori's or other places because we went to other properties.
But when someone suggests multiple times, that means more than 3 or 4 times, and that's
Objection. It means more than once. The information is testimonial.
Hold up. So Mr. Warwick, if there's an objection, if you'll make sure to stop testifying, I'm going to rule on the objection and then we'll ask you to continue forward.
Okay.
The question was multiple times insinuates 3 or 4 times, something to that effect.
More than 3 or 4 times, Judge.
More than 3 or 4 times. Mr. Wood, your objection?
That's testimonial.
Mr. Pryor, do you wish to respond to that?
Well, it's not testimonial, it's a question, and for us to clarify what the fact that there may have been a suggestion he was there multiple times, I get to clarify that.
He doesn't get to create new definitions for words, Your Honor.
I'm not trying to create new definitions for words. I'm trying to clarify what all of the testimony in this case is, and I'm entitled to do that.
Mr. Pryor, why don't you ask the witness what his definition of multiple times is, and then you can go from there.
Mr. Warwick, what is your definition of multiple times?
More than once.
Okay. So 2 times is multiple times.
Yeah, 2 times would be multiple times.
Okay.
And I'm just trying to be going off the best of my memory,
Okay.
to be honest.
And I appreciate that. Thank you, sir. There was one of those multiple times, the 2 or 3 times you saw Mr. Daybell was viewing a piece of property. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that was at what time? That was on the Sunday, the 22nd?
It was a Sunday. It was Sunday. I can't remember if it was late morning or afternoon.
And who was present at that real estate discussion?
First, it was Lori Vallow, Alex Cox, Melanie Gibb.
Okay, boom, bombshell right there. Do you remember that Melanie said Lori wasn't there? Remember? It was Alex, Chad, Lori, and this guy, David. That's what Melanie testified to. First thing he says is Lori Vallow was there. Wow.
It was late morning or afternoon.
And who was present at that real estate discussion?
First, it was Lori Vallow, Alex Cox,
First.
Melanie Gibb, and then Chad showed up later with a realtor.
Okay. And where was that located, that discussion and that meeting?
It was.
May I offer a suggestion to
I'm
you?
trying to.
May I offer a suggestion that it was at a piece of property close to Chad Daybell's?
Yes.
So at that point, Miss Vallow and your girlfriend at the time, Miss Gibb, were there. Then you showed up, and then Mr. Daybell showed up with a real estate agent and himself. So there were 5 of you there. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And how long of a meeting was?
There we go. He just put Lori there. Is this going to matter? I don't know.
that, sir?
I'd estimate 30 minutes.
Okay, and when did that meeting end approximately? And I don't need an exact idea, but a ballpark as to when you felt that meeting ended.
I really don't recall.
Okay, and then after that meeting was it late afternoon, early afternoon?
I really don't recall. I'm trying to.
Was it in the morning?
If it was morning, I would say it was late.
Okay, but at some point the meeting ended, and then did Mr. Daybell go back to Lori Vallow's apartment at that point?
No.
Did Miss Vallow and your girlfriend go back to Lori Vallow's apartment?
See these pauses? Melanie testified that they all went back to Lori's, except for Chad.
But everybody had separate cars, so.
That wasn't the question.
We all just kind of went our different directions.
Okay. At some point, did all of you meet back at Lori Vallow's apartment that evening?
Please repeat.
I'm sorry?
I couldn't understand the question.
At some point later that evening, did you, Miss Vallow, and your girlfriend, Miss Gibb, go back to Lori Vallow's apartment that night?
Yes.
And you did a podcast, is that correct?
Yes.
And that was what day, sir?
Sunday night, the 22nd.
Okay, and on Sunday night, the 22nd, did you see JJ Vallow?
No.
Wait for it.
Did you stay with your girlfriend the entire time
You
during
just
that
said no.
podcast?
Yes.
And she was with you the entire time, is that correct?
Yes.
So if you didn't see JJ Vallow, the likelihood is that she wouldn't have seen JJ Vallow either. Would that be fair, sir?
Calls for speculation, objection.
Okay, can I ask a clarification? Oh, sorry.
Hold up there, Mr. Warwick. There's been an objection, calls for speculation. Mr. Pryor, I'll give you a chance to respond to that objection.
Judge, I'm asking what his perception is as to whether or not he was with her the whole time, and whether, is it possible that she could have observed JJ Vallow on that night, being that he was with her the entire time during the podcast? I don't think that's inappropriate in any way, Your Honor.
I will allow the question. Why don't you please repeat it very clearly so Mr. Warwick understands it?
And Mr. Warwick, since you were with Melanie Gibb the entire time during that podcast, if she were to say that she saw JJ Vallow, you would have seen JJ Vallow as well. Would that be fair, sir?
Yes.
Objection calls for speculation.
Does not, Judge.
Overruled.
He already answered it.
Now,
Hey, Ave.
at some point over the weekend, this is a 3-bedroom townhome, is that correct?
Yes.
Well, Miss Vallow was staying in one room, right?
Yes.
And you were staying in another room, correct?
Yes.
Was anybody else staying in any of the other rooms?
Yes.
Who?
Melanie.
And whose room was she staying in?
Tiley's.
Okay, and you were staying in whose?
JJ's.
Okay. So these two clowns were staying with Lori. One was staying in Tylee's room and one was staying in JJ's room. And they have conflicting stories on who saw JJ and who didn't. And these are potentially the state's star witnesses. We should be worried that these people may walk. Because if I'm a juror and I'm listening to this dude and I'm listening to Melanie Gibb and I'm hearing their conflicting stories, their lies and their pauses and their like inability to answer simple questions about the last times these kids were saw alive, yikes. It's not a good look for the state.
Are you aware
Well, now
of
they're
whether or not
married.
your girlfriend
So can
has
they
any
testify?
kind
I
of
don't-
an auditory disorder or been diagnosed with a
Wait,
hearing
this is good.
difficulty?
I freaking love it. I love it. I do not love Chad Daybell, but I love the questions that Pryor asked. Now, wait for it.
Are you aware of whether or not your girlfriend has any kind of an auditory disorder or been diagnosed with a hearing difficulty?
Please repeat.
Are you aware of whether or not your girlfriend has any kind of an auditory or hearing disorder of any kind?
Objection beyond the scope, relevance.
Mr. Pryor?
Judge, it goes to perception of whether or not either of them can hear properly. I think it's proper examination. Ms. Gibb has testified a certain way, and I want this witness to confirm that. And I think I'm I think I'm perfectly within my right to inquire about that.
With the objection beyond the scope, there was no direct examination of this witness about an auditory disorder of Ms. Gibbs, so I will sustain the objection.
Even though it was sustained, he still said it. He still said it and got it on the record. Oh, good morning, jammers. Oh, shoot.
You're aware of Mr. Daybell's writings, is that correct?
Please.
Objection.
You're familiar with Mr. Daybell's writings, is that correct?
Objection beyond the scope. We never asked that or anything about that.
Sustained.
Judge, if I may, there was some inquiry about him having familiarity and knowing Mr. Daybell for 5 years. I think I ought to be able to inquire as to what is the extent and his understanding of that relationship that he claims he has had with Mr. Daybell for 5 years. So I would ask the court to, respectfully, I would ask the court to reconsider its ruling.
Mr. Wood, I'll let you respond to that. That is true. There was questioning about the relationship between Mr. Warwick and Mr. Daybell.
So why do you think, we used to call this Judge Bobby Brady. He actually looks like Bobby Brady. But yeah, why do you think that this judge is no longer on the case? He was so fair to John Pryor. He was so fair. He didn't favor the state at all. And now we've got Boyce shut out, completely shut out everything. Video, audio, live streaming, anything.
If he wants to ask about the relationship, I think that's fine. We did ask about that. We didn't ask anything about Mr. Daybell's books or his writings.
Who cares? Ask about the
Mr.
books.
Pryor, I will allow you to ask questions about the relationship.
Okay, and Mr. Warwick, the nature of the relationship is that the two of you would go to preparedness camps, is that correct?
We've been to preparedness camps, but not together.
Okay, and both of you share a faith in the LDS religion, is that correct?
Yes.
As well as your girlfriend and Ms. Vallow also are active and share the faith in the LDS religion, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you're familiar with Mr. Daybell because as part of these seminars and places you visit over the years, one of them is Mr. Daybell as being an author of fiction books, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So you're familiar with Mr. Daybell's writings and his fiction writings, is that correct?
Okay, so he's really driving home, like we talked about yesterday with Melanie, the fact that Chad writes fiction books. And that's really a fact, because there was an interview with Chad with one of his books where he says, this is my first nonfiction book. All of his books were fiction. So I think the point he's trying to make is that, they're basing his stories in these books on what they did and what they believed. And I think Chad's defense is going to be, no, those aren't my beliefs. Those are fictional writings. So is that going to hold water? I don't know. But these people all being liars does not look good to me.
Not the fiction. I did not.
I am anxiously awaiting the Melanie Gibb audio tonight, let me tell you.
Read any fiction books.
Okay, but he did write fiction books.
Your Honor, I've already objected. This has been ruled on.
And Rob Wood does
That
not
goes back
want that
to
out.
His understanding of his relationship, I think it's perfectly permissible.
As far as the question, have the books been read? It's already been answered that he did not read any of the fiction books. Why don't we go from there? Mr. Pryor, you may
Judge, I
proceed.
think I'm going to move in a different direction, if I may.
You may.
The judge is like, please.
How well did you know Alex Cox, sir?
What about Alex Cox?
How well did you know him, sir?
Not very well.
Okay. Would you clarify your answer a little bit for me in terms of what the nature of your relationship with Alex Cox was?
He was at Lori Vallow's home when I met him in August, and he was at her condo when I was there at the condo. And so Alex was he was just a kind of just a fun guy, sense of humor, wasn't taking anything real serious, so we had light conversation,
Okay.
but nothing in depth.
Did you ever have any difficulty understanding what anybody was saying to you while you were having conversations with them while you were at the Vallow residence?
No, it was not.
So you've never had any difficulty in hearing or understanding what anybody is saying to you when you're having a normal conversation with them. Would that be fair, sir?
Objection relevance.
Please repeat.
Okay, I'm sorry you didn't hear me. Did you ever have any difficulty when you were having conversations, and I'll speak very loudly into this so you hear me. Did you ever have any difficulty having and understanding conversations when you were at the Vallow townhouse in September?
Sometimes there is, but I always ask for clarification.
Okay, okay. Alex Cox, would it be fair to represent to you that your recollection from September 19th through the 23rd of September, that Alex Cox was a frequent visitor to Lori Vallow's townhome?
Yes,
Okay. And at one point, did you ever observe Alex Cox babysitting JJ?
he seemed to take care of JJ really well. They seemed to have a good relationship, and so
They were very close. Would that be fair?
they seemed close to me.
And anybody else, you know, and I don't want to misrepresent, but obviously JJ would have difficulty being with anybody else and would have some difficulty other than Alex. It was difficult for him to bond with other male people. Would that be a fair statement?
That's what I observed.
Okay. Now, I'd like to switch gears a little bit about Tylee. You never met Tylee, is that right?
Never did.
Did you ever discuss with Lori Vallow your girlfriend's relationship with Tylee?
Objection beyond the scope.
See, Rob Wood does not want it to come out, A, that Melanie and Tylee did not get along. Or translate that to Tylee did not like Melanie and didn't want to be around her.
Your girlfriend's relationship with Tylee?
Objection beyond the scope.
How's it beyond the
The
scope?
question, Mr. Pryor, was, did you ever discuss with Lori Vallow Mr. Warwick's relationship?
Miss Gibbs' relationship with Tylee. Was that a topic of discussion?
And there's been an objection as to beyond the scope. I'll let you respond to that, Mr. Pryor.
There was some representation about that he didn't have any kind of a relationship with Tylee, and I think I ought to delve into that. If he didn't have a relationship, Miss Gibbs is claiming that she had, I'm not really sure how to define what she said as her relationship with Tylee, but I think I ought to be able to inquire in that a little bit.
I'd also renew my objection based on hearsay. It calls for hearsay.
Now wait for it. The prosecutor actually calls his witness Mr. Gibb. Mr. Gibb, and then he corrects himself.
If Miss Vallow made some representations about her and Miss Gibbs' relationship with Tylee, I think that comes in, Judge.
Hey, Jen.
Ask your question one more time, Mr. Pryor.
Were you familiar with any kind of relationship between Miss Gibb and Tylee?
No.
Were you aware of any difficulty with the relationship between Miss Gibb and Tylee?
Objection. Beyond the scope, we've never asked anything about that of this witness.
Mr. Pryor?
Judge, it goes back to any kind of a relationship with Tylee and what he's familiar with. He said he doesn't have a relationship, and he's in at least it appears to be a significant relationship with a partner, and I think I ought to be able to inquire into that.
I'll allow that question.
Were you familiar with any sort of difficulty with the relationship between Miss Gibb and Tylee?
Yeah, Melanie just said that Tylee was, I'm trying to remember how she said it.
All right, Your Honor, I'm going to object. This calls for hearsay.
Sustained.
Judge, I'm done. I've covered everything that I think I need to cover in this case. Thank you very much, Mr. Warwick. I appreciate it.
Ooh, what do you guys think? The prosecutor does not want that to come out. Because Warwick started to answer, and then Wood was like, no. Because he started to freaking explain it. He was like, yeah. How'd she put it?
Melanie just said that Kylie was, I'm trying to remember how she said it.
Your Honor, I'm going to object. This calls for hearsay.
Sustained.
Judge, I'm done. I've covered everything that I think I need to cover in this case. Thank you very much, Mr. Warwick. I appreciate it.
Any redirect, Mr. Wood?
Yes, just briefly. Mr. Gibb, or Mr. Warwick, I apologize.
Let's hear that again. He called him Mr. fucking Gibb. After all of that, the prosecutor calls him Mr. Gibb.
Any redirect, Mr. Wood?
Yes, just briefly. Mr. Gibb, or Mr. Warwick, I apologize.
Creek Town, dude.
Just for a point of clarity, September 22nd, you did a podcast with Melanie and Lori, correct?
Correct.
And your testimony was that JJ was not there during the podcast, correct?
Correct.
Did you see him later that night?
Yes.
When?
When Alex brought him home to put him to bed.
Okay.
Okay, see, this is where I was watching this and I'm like, wait, what? He said that he didn't see him later that night. But now he's saying Alex, well, he said he brought him home and put him in bed, but then he's saying he slept in JJ's room. So I'm sitting here thinking, if Alex brought him home and put him in bed, where'd you sleep, Mr. Warwick? And obviously Pryor was thinking the same shit.
No further questions.
And Judge, may I follow up, because that did bring up an issue in terms of that, because that's inconsistent with what I recall him previously testifying that he didn't see J.J. Vallow. So I think I ought to be given the leeway for at least one very simple question, Judge.
I'll allow that, Mr. Wood. If you want to follow up, if there's a new issue that's raised from the question, I'll allow that as well. Go ahead, Mr. Pryor.
When Alex Cox brought JJ home that evening, and we're not sure about what time that was, but where did he put JJ to bed?
Where did he put JJ to bed?
Where did he put JJ to go to sleep? Where did he
In
lay?
Lori's room.
In Lori's room. Okay. All right. Thank you, Judge. That's all I have.
Mr. Wood?
Nothing further.
Mr.
When someone answers a question with a question, to give them time to think, you know that they're lying. He is
Because you're a liar.
a liar. I don't like it. If this is what they have against Chad and Lori, we're in trouble.
Bed.
Where did he put JJ to bed?
Where did he put JJ to go to sleep? Where did he
In
lay?
Lori's room.
In Lori's room. Okay. All right. Thank you, Judge. That's all I have.
Mr. Wood?
Nothing further.
Mr. Warwick, you may be excused from the witness stand. Thank you for being here. May this witness be excused
Yes,
from
Your
the
Honor. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Warwick.
I'm telling you, the prosecution made a deal with the devils, with Melanie and David and whoever else they have from Lori's inner circle testifying against her. They made deals with the devil because Chad Daybell is a bad man. He is a bad, bad man. And it scares me to think that they have these inconsistent witnesses that are supposed to convince a jury that, you know, these things happened the way that the prosecution is saying they happened. So, yeah, we've got Miss Gibb on the stand today. Let's refresh Nate and see if we've got anything new here. Oh, okay. Let's see. They're playing her calls. Okay, she's playing that call where Melanie recorded. Let's go back here. After Lori moved to Idaho, Melanie recalls talking with her on the phone, and Melanie heard Tylee in the background. Lori asked Melanie to come visit her. Excuse me. In September of 2019, there was a seminar in Rexburg. So Melanie and her boyfriend David went up. They stayed at Lori's house. Melanie did not see Tylee, and Lori told Melanie that Tylee was at BYU with roommates. Melanie asked Lori about Tylee's belongings. Lori said they had been put in storage. Lori didn't talk much about Tylee. Melanie did see JJ and told Lori that Lori told Melanie that JJ had an evil spirit in him. Lori learned this the day before from Chad. So the day before Melanie and David Warwick got there, it looks like Chad told Lori that JJ had an evil spirit. Lori told Melanie that JJ's behavior was more difficult and he would say things like, "I love Satan." Right. Okay. JJ would climb up on the fridge on top of the cabinets and was acting aggressively. Lori tried to explain how he was changing into a more negative type of demeanor. Melanie says she did not notice any changes in JJ, and he appeared to be a typical 7-year-old autistic kid. Melanie has experience with autistic children. She said his behavior was normal. She never observed him climbing on counters, but one day he was upset and Chad took him upstairs. Oh my God, you guys. After Chad took JJ upstairs, he came downstairs and Melanie asked Chad why his neck was so red. Chad responded that JJ had scratched his neck. Oh my God. This Chad is a bad man. Melanie says Chad and Lori were very affectionate that weekend. She went with them to walk around the track at BYU, Idaho, and they explored the campus. As they were leaving, Chad gave Lori a hug and a kiss. Chad asked David Warwick not to share about his relationship with Lori with anyone. Lori told Melanie that Maroney appeared to her in a temple on September 22nd. Melanie said the last time she saw JJ was on the 22nd as Alex was taking him upstairs. Melanie and David left the next day, and she does not recall seeing JJ before they left on September 23rd. Melanie remembers asking Lori before Charles died why he would want to kill her. Lori said it was because she had a $1 million life insurance policy. Lori then said Charles had a life insurance policy, but if Charles died, all the money would go to Kay. Lori asked why she didn't get a divorce from Charles. What? Lori was asked why she didn't get a divorce from Charles. Lori said that wasn't the Lord's plan. And if Chad got a divorce, he would be penalized for that. Chad would lose his exaltation or standing with God. Melanie never saw JJ again after the night of September 22nd. She never returned to Idaho again, but spoke with Lori occasionally. Melanie next heard from Chad around Thanksgiving. He told her the Rexburg police would be calling, and Melanie not to answer. Melanie said Chad was nervous, and the police are looking for JJ. Melanie said she thought JJ was with Kay, and Chad told her he was not. Chad told Melanie that Lori would be calling her. Melanie thought JJ was with Kay because Lori had told her she met with Kay at an airport, and she asked Kay to take care of JJ. Now, that might be partially true because Kay asked Lori for permission to bring JJ to Charles's memorial, and Kay had bought plane tickets to fly out and fly JJ back to Louisiana and then fly him back to Arizona. And at the last minute, Lori canceled and said, no, he's not going. So maybe Melanie did think that he actually went. Lori then called Melanie. Lori said the police came by and showed officers that JJ was with Melanie watching Frozen. But see, at that point, Melanie should have been like, He's obviously not with Kay, because why would she say he's with me? Lori asked Melanie to take photos of random kids at the movie theater and send them to the police. Police tried to get a hold of Melanie, but she didn't take their calls. She says, I wasn't sure what in the world to do. You weren't sure what in the world to do? How about tell the truth? Lori told Melanie the police were dark, so she believed her? God, these people. Kay, Lori's dad, and her brother, Adam Cox, were also dark. Lori said JJ's life was in danger, and Kay was trying to kidnap him. But she just said that she thought Kay had him. Melanie wasn't sure what to believe, says she was in shock and perplexed. How about pick up the phone and try to get a hold of Kay? How about we pick up the phone and we get Kay's number and we say, hey, do you have JJ? Because Lori's acting really weird. Melanie eventually spoke to police at the end of November, beginning of December, and said JJ had not been with her. She waited weeks. Blake is now playing the call. Melanie recorded the conversation with Chad and Lori. Chad answers, hello, sweet Melanie. And we listened to that. I'm going to skip over all that because we listened to that call. Chad says his own children said Tammy had been getting weaker, and he said that in the call that she would die at a young age. And Chad says you have to have faith in the master plan. Melanie says you can understand my concern from an outside perspective. As Melanie says she was not listening to her gut. Lori says she lives by the scriptures. Melanie says she's rested, and it says if you haven't heard the call, you should take a listen. Both Lori and Melanie are talking very fast, so it's hard to get it all in. Melanie says Lori's behavior is not one of someone who believes in Christ. And Lori says, I was never with him and he was never divorced. Melanie says, honey, I've seen you guys together. You ain't fooling no one. Lori says Jesus Christ is protecting her. And the judge called a morning recess 20 minutes ago, and we are up to date. How about that? How about that? I know, poor JJ being played with. And that is your AM Vallow update for Thursday, April 13th. And also a flashback to Chad Daybell's preliminary hearing in 2020. And Mel Gibbs, Mel Phibbs' boyfriend, David Warwick. Melanie is still on the stage this afternoon, and we will anxiously await the updates tonight. Take care and stay safe until next time.